Howdy doody.
Hello,
Tim Ryan.
Zach Miller. Good to see you. Good, man. Episode 206. I feel like I have to remind myself every week what it is, just because the numbers keep on climbing.
Yeah, and the higher you get, the harder it is to count.
It is. Well, yeah, it's easy to lose track. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How you been?
I'm great.
It's good.
I can't complain. You settled down from your high of the festivities in Philadelphia?
I'm still trying to really digest everything. It's been 4 days since I attended WrestleMania, which
bucket list item.
Bucket list item number one.
Zach had sent me a clip. The title of the clip was the best 5 minutes in WWE history. Do you feel that is? That's what the title of the clip was. Do you feel that was the best 5 minutes in history?
I mean, it was pretty damn wild to be a part of it. So there's a lot of nostalgia. Folks came out at the same time. It was definitely maybe one of the biggest main events of all time. And what happened in that main event, I was not anticipating happening.
Was that
Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes? What were you gonna say?
No, was that no? Are you even allowed to? You're allowed to talk about it because it's all out there now, right?
Yeah, the world knows.
Yeah. But no, what's his name? The when the church bells were going off, man, that was pretty intense.
Oh, so the Undertaker, so it basically becomes a good match between Roman Reigns for Cody Rhodes, between those two for 20, 25 minutes. Then some outside interference started happening, which you anticipate. And then John Cena's music hits. And then The Rock's music hits. And I'm 10 feet away from The Rock. So it's kind of like, hey. He rolls out in bell bottoms, which is hilarious.
That picture that you had sent me, I really thought that was a picture from someone else. I did not realize that was a picture that you had taken.
I was literally...
were you able to smell what The Rock was cooking?
I couldn't smell what The Rock was cooking, no. But then the Undertaker's bells hit. People went ape shit when that happened. And then a couple matches before that, Logan Paul, the famous YouTuber and Vine guy, he's a wrestler, really good wrestler actually. He comes in and is literally, we had the last seats onto the fence where you could see the stage, which we've decided are good seats because you get to see the entrances, and the WrestleMania entrances are usually obnoxious and amazing. And so we got to see all that kind of really close. But then Logan Paul's entrance was literally right next to us within a foot. And we're on TV the entire night, which is hilarious. And then also, by the way, Stephanie McMahon, daughter of Vince McMahon, big part of the business, shook her hand that day, which was pretty crazy. Just a whirlwind of everything.
That's great.
And then there was something the night before too. It was just.
Man, I feel, that's great stuff. I feel like this is like a little microcosm what we're going to do here with our guest, Chase Canova.
Yeah, we haven't. I haven't seen him in years. 7 years, 6 years, maybe. I don't know. He was 12 years old then, apparently, coming through the launch pad, your old digs, your old stuff.
So I feel like we have to open up the show with the story. So Zach, you and I, we've talked about, you had Hatch, I had the launch pad, I was in Williamsburg. We opened up this place. We were in Newtown. We would do different events. We would try to get people involved. And there was this, at that time, a young man,
whippersnapper,
name was Chase, and he would attend these events. And comes to find out, so we're beyond the point now where Chase can get in trouble, but Chase would have his mom write a note, get him out of school, and because he would find more value and more. He would like going to the Launchpad events more than he would like to go to high school. So that's how I first met Chase.
I mean, who would want to go to high school?
Is that accurate, Chase?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. I would find a way to get out of school, and I had a doctor's appointment, and
You were really sick back then, huh?
I was so sick, so
Yeah.
sick. I just could not, for some reason, Wednesday mornings, I just always had this illness at around
Yeah.
9
I
a.m.
mean, it was
So,
just those were fun times. And and I remember, I think that maybe one of the very first times, even before that, I remember you had sent me an email. Um, 'Cause you had registered to go to start Peninsula, and you're like, "Hey, or maybe you sent me, you walked up to me in person, you said, "Hey, can you change my name tag? I use my dad's credit card to, yeah," so the name tag had your dad's name on there, so we had to change it to make sure that, that your name was on there. But yeah, that's those are signs, those are indicators that, someone's has been bitten by the entrepreneurship bug, is gonna go on and do cool things.
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, and this is so full circle. It's so cool. But yeah, back then I was under 18, so I didn't have a credit card. I didn't know you could get a credit card before you're 18. So
Yeah.
I guess shame
Probably the
on me
smart
for
way to
that one.
go. Probably the smart way to go. Like,
Yeah, probably.
But then there was a little hiatus. Go ahead, Zach.
Do you remember how you learned about any of this stuff? Like, how did you learn about Launchpad, Start Peninsula? Was Start Peninsula in Williamsburg that year? Like how did you actually? Because I learned about you. I met you because of those things. But how did you come to that? Because it's always interesting to see like where people learn about the thing that is the thing to get all the people to gel together.
Great question. I think either my mom or my grandmother or my dad, one of them cut out a newspaper clipping about Start Peninsula, the business pitch competition. It was in Williamsburg, right? Where I lived at the time and where I still live, at William and Mary's Mason School of Business. And I thought, well, this sounds cool. I'm going to go. And I was so nervous when I went, and a little bit of that whole imposter syndrome thing, but I just leaned into it and I went. And definitely the youngest person there. I was so honored when one of the people, doing the registrations at the front said, "Are you just a spectator? Or are you pitching a business?" I was like so honored that she thought I could even possibly be pitching a business. I said, "No, I'm just a spectator." But then I heard, because I just found it through a newspaper clipping, it was coming up or something. I was like hungry to find out more about this network. It seemed like, most of the people there all sort of knew each other a little bit. And they were talking about these different meetups. And I'm like, man, I'd love to know how to know about these. So I was just asking people and connecting with people. And then, so I learned about the Launchpad right there in Williamsburg and Newtown, 1 million cups. Then I learned about Hatch in Norfolk, and just try to start going out to all these different things. I had so much fun with them.
Where did you have your detailing business at the time, or when did all that come into play?
I started that when I was 12.
Well,
okay,
hopefully
I was trying to recall what the business was. Okay, now I remember. Okay.
Yep. And I was about 16 when I sort of got involved with the.
Well, hopefully you learned a thing or two, and business improved once you started hanging out at the Launchpad.
It certainly did. Yeah.
Well, if anything, you picked up some
business
clients.
owners?
What's that?
Are your parents business owners?
They're not.
Okay, so there's not the bug in the family. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. What? So then there was like a little hiatus because you graduated from high school, despite missing a class or two. But you went to James Madison University.
Yep.
Go Dukes.
And
had a great time there. Learned a lot and had a great time. Probably similar to what Zach could say about WVU.
I didn't learn anything at WVU. I just had a good time. I didn't learn anything from my book perspective. I learned a lot about life on the hills of Morgantown.
Yeah, but that's like kind of where we, said things started to. You were growing up at that point, so you decided to do the corporate thing upon graduation, right? She worked for Daimler Chrysler. Was that it?
Yep. You're a few mergers premature though. There was Daimler Chrysler. There was a couple, and then it was Fiat Chrysler Automobiles when I started there, and then they had another merger while I was there, and then became Stellantis.
Interesting. And so, what did you learn there? Was that just not your thing?
I mean, to y'all's point, clearly the entrepreneurship was in my bloodstream, so to speak, with the experience of finding ways to get out of school to go network and go to these events and these business pitch competitions and stuff. So, it's kind of hard to rewrite your own DNA, so to speak. I had a great experience there, but what it was a chapter. And as I put it, chapters close, just like in books. Chapters in life close, and there's nothing wrong with that. Gets you to your next chapter. Had a great time there. Truly, I think it was the best job option I had as I was graduating. And it was a great job.
Well, on paper, it worked, right? I mean, you're a car guy. You love everything about the car aspects, and so on paper, it worked.
Where else can you be a 22-year-old punk fresh out of school driving an $80,000 top of the line pickup truck around?
What could go wrong?
Right. What could go wrong? And then I got the Morgantown, West Virginia district. What could go wrong?
I don't know what. I mean, you can't tease these things and anticipate that me or Tim are gonna like push a little harder. Come on, like that's what we do. Like, and if you're in my town of Morgantown, like let's like, where did you go? Like, where did you hang out? Like, what was your place that like? What were your 3 favorite places?
Zach, do you think that those places that you would go to are still there today?
Definitely.
A lot of it. Well, the bar that I used to go to, is just now for sale.
Which one?
And Sports Page.
Okay. I don't think I ever went there.
Okay. So it used to be a bowling alley that they converted at some point into a like sports bar. And it was selling for like $500K. Now on the surface, you're like, okay, $500K, that's not a lot to acquire it. But you're not owning the building. So you're still leasing the building. And so you're just buying the name, basically. Maybe a couple of assets from a TV perspective, maybe the hood and stuff like that. But like, it was not in good shape way back when. And I know it ain't in better shape today. So I was like, this just isn't going to work. Because my buddy was like, we should buy it. And I'm like, no. Like,
no.
You're not. If you're getting the actual building as the asset, sure. But no.
Well, and knowing Morgantown and the college drinking scene there, that is a lot of 25-cent well drinks to get to $500,000.
Also true. Bent Willie's we went to a lot. That is now closed.
My spot.
That was like the 2-store.
I like to go into Fat Daddy's.
Okay, see, I don't know what that is.
So it was up a hill, like it was so crazy.
Everything's up a hill in Morgantown.
I was gonna say, the whole place is up a hill. It was an indoor hill. It was just like a huge ramp going up as you entered, and there's just like this guy at the door that checking your ID, always in a horrible mood, and then you go up this indoor hill, and then you're at this you probably walked up 2 or 3, at least just 2 stories just to go into this bar, but up a ramp. It's kind of an interesting experience. And then you're in the bar.
Okay. And I know what that bar is.
Yeah.
And across the street from that is where Bent Willie's was.
Okay.
Which looks like it's called XX Code now. I don't know. But when I was there, nothing really closed, but I guess a lot's changed. I haven't been there since 2012. They're not allowing me back in. I'm hoping that when I go and I request another visitation, I'm allowed to go. But
so I'm my turn to push a little bit. Why are they not allowing you back into it?
I'm not at liberty to speak about that.
Oh, okay.
You guys each signed NDAs and
signed NDAs. Yeah. The only NDA I've ever signed in my life. Yeah, I mean, I'm just not at liberty to speak. But some things have happened, some time has passed, and soon it sounds like I may get an option to go back to the town of Morgan.
Well,
let me know when you're going.
Okay.
We can both relive our heydays there.
That'd be a fun field trip.
I'm scared. Tim asked. I guess
it's just interesting. So like, I know all this seeing you again, Chase, is great because it's just a flood of memories coming back. Like, another hustle that it's not a hustle on all the greatest in the greatest sense of the word. I value my time, and I was like, Chase, we're trying to sell this car. Terry had this 330 BMW. It was a 335. It was like, hey, this is what we want to get out of it. Anything that you get on top of that, it's yours. And Chase was running that for a little while, and that was a successful business transaction.
How much extra did you get on top?
I don't even want to know, but it doesn't.
I think.
Oh, I hope it's a huge number. This is gonna be great.
Well, at the time for me, it was a huge number. I think I was in high school, maybe a senior in high school, or home from college for a summer. But I couldn't tell you. I know it was somewhere between $1,200 to $2,200, which is great. Yeah.
You for a high school college kid? Hell
yeah. Oh yeah. It was great. It was an opportunity, and I still remember everyone that gave me opportunities like that. I know I detailed your 330 that you had, Tim, that you were the original owner of and had brought over from Germany. And, I always still remember everyone that gave me an opportunity like that, whether it was the car detailing business or the car brokerage business or whatever.
You missed that car, Tim?
No, God, I drove the wheel, almost literally drove the wheels off that thing. I mean, I had it for like 18 years. I mean, it was.
It's because you were waiting for the Tesla to come. That you just kept waiting for it to open. Yeah.
But so was that just? So were you just? How did you progress from? How did you put your foot in the real estate game? Because that's what you're focused on now. You went from wheels to homes.
So So that's a great question. I'll rewind back to probably when I was coming to 1 Million Cups and stuff. I had a few, the businesses we talked about, and I had tried a couple other things that didn't work out, but I learned a lot from. Not everything's always been a success. I think everyone can agree with that. So during high school, so here's the beginning. I'll try to make this part brief because it's so far, 10 years ago probably. But during high school, I would look up houses on Zillow that I could tell had been totally flipped. Everything looked brand new. There's no furniture in them, or if there was furniture, it's nicer. You can tell no one's sitting on it. Staging type stuff. And I'd look up what it's being listed for. And then I'd look, I just set a little reminder, and 6 months later, I'd see if it had sold and what it sold for. And I'd look up to see what the person had bought it for, and who the listing agent was, and who was selling it, and who that investor is. And I sort of was just following the house flip side of the market. And I would drive around and kind of just see the houses, peek in the windows. I knew there were vacant houses. So, and I just found it fun. I just found it interesting. Interesting. They did granite countertops in this house. Oh, this house is, they painted the brick, or they, this house did new vinyl siding, whatever. Just seeing what people would do that were flipping houses. And then, so that was high school, and that was it. I really wasn't doing anything more than that. It was just kind of like a fun little pastime. Then fast forward to college. Fast forward to college, my junior year of college. This is going to sound like a tangent, but I promise it is part of the story. I was getting an oil change, a state inspection on my car. And it's getting late. It's getting dark. The place is about to close. It's like winter time of the spring semester of college, my junior year. And I see the guy that was doing the car, the mechanic. He runs in, yells at the boss. He's like, "Boss, get out here." I was like, "What's going on?" I kind of look out, and I'm just doing my homework. I'm a college student at the time, doing my homework in their waiting area. And I see my car just in the middle of the parking lot running. I go, what the heck? Well, what happened was the mechanic at the shop backed my car into somebody's truck. And so the person whose truck got backed into, I talked to. I'd actually, totally weird story, but I went to the store right after that, and this guy was in the store. I said, "Gosh, he looks so familiar." I said, "I think he was just at the mechanic shop up the road. Let me ask him." And next thing I know, I'm going, "Excuse me, sir, were you just at the mechanic shop up the road?" He said, "Yeah, I was." I said, "Did your truck get hit?" He said, "Yes, it did." I said, "Huh, that was my car that hit your truck." He sort of looked at me crooked. I was like, I wasn't driving, though. I wasn't driving. It was someone else. And he was just so nice about it. He said, "Well, here's my card." He said, "I've got an extra car if you need to borrow one." He's like, it's a BMW I don't use. I'm like, say no more. This is great. And I had a BMW at the time too, Tim. You'll appreciate that. But mine was way older than his. But when he handed me his card, you can probably guess where the story is going. It said he worked at a firm called Cottonwood Commercial Real Estate. His name is Butch Strouderman. He and I are still friends to this day. Very, very dear friend of mine. And I just kind of look at it and I go, oh, I said, you're in real estate? He said, yes, sir. I work at Cottonwood Commercial. I said, interesting. And that's all I said. I just kind of filed it in the back of my mind. And he offered me, if you've got an extra car if you need it. I said, well, that's really nice of you. I don't know. I'd feel a little uneasy driving someone else's car if something happened. But he said, well, nonetheless, he said, email me tomorrow. There's a guy I know at the edge of town who does body work, who can fix your car up for you. And, it's probably going to be less than anywhere else. So that's what we did. And the guy did great work at a great price. And this man, Butch, had connected me with. So I said, Butch, thank you so much. My car's fixed now. It's like a month later. I emailed him. I said, love to take you out to lunch. Because you're exactly right. It was way less than anywhere else. So we went to B-Dubs, his favorite place, and we got lunch and treated him to lunch. I just said, hey, I kind of made my ask a little bit there. And I said, hey, I'd love to, just maybe do some sort of menial tasks for you that, for me might be educational, but for you are not worth your time. And might be some ways I can learn about the business and just, kind of see what you do and help out with stuff, whatever it might be. I said, but it kind of needs to work with my class schedule a little bit because that's, the reason I'm here in this town. I'm a student first. So I'm not sure I skipped any class to hang out with Butch and learn from him, but there's probably at least one or two times I did or was at least late to class. So I was just kind of, seeing how he did things, and he'd drive around town and say, oh, I built that house, or I flipped that building and sold it. And I've seen a little bit of the commercial side of it. He did residential as well. I helped him find tenants for properties he had. I would market the properties and help him find tenants. And it was just fun. I met a lot of it's kind of like my time back with the 757 entrepreneurship community. I was just meeting all these good people that were smart people. They were super dynamic people. And it excited me. And I'd kind of see different things people were doing, and in this case, in the real estate world, some of his colleagues and different deals they're doing, and I just got really interested in it all. I was like, "This is," but I never really saw like how myself, a kid in college, could get started. Real estate is not cheap. Even in areas where it is cheap, you still need a good bit of money, or so I thought. So then, fast forward to graduating from JMU. My best job offer I had was with, at the time, FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. And it was a job I was pleased to take, but I knew I always, as we've established here in this conversation, I've always had side hustles. I knew that I need to find something else. And one thing we didn't talk about, you guys may not know about, in college, during COVID, I'm a COVID graduated during the pandemic. I was liquidating restaurants that went out of business. I was selling equipment and everything down to the rocks and the flower beds and thermostats on the wall.
That makes sense to me. I would see some stuff on, I don't know, if Facebook or Instagram or something, like, where is Chase finding this stuff to sell?
Yeah.
That makes sense now.
Yeah. So I was liquidating these restaurants, and I think my best week ever at the time, I had a $4,000 week, $4,000 in net profit, liquidating a Smoothie King. And I liquidated a few throughout college, my senior year. And
$4,000 in college a week is good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I couldn't do it every week, though, but it happened once. And actually, so this is kind of funny since we're talking about the real estate side of it all. My last sale I had was at the Smoothie King. For some reason, I could not sell the upright fridge, which upright fridges, commercial fridges, are like theoretically like the easiest things to sell. But for some reason, I could not sell this fridge. I had this buyer. They fell through. And my family was in town because they were moving me out of my college apartment. So my car was full. Their car was full. We went to lunch. We finished up. And someone messaged me or called me at lunch. Like, can you meet like after I'm done with work today? I'm like, shoot, that's like 5:30 p.m. or whatever it was. I'm like, I'm already moved out of my apartment. I had to be moved out by noon or something. So my car is loaded up. My 2001 5 Series was just loaded to the gills with like junk, dorm or college apartment type stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'll meet you at 5:30. And I sold that upright fridge, which was the last big item I had to sell. And I made sure I parked far from the Smoothie King because I literally for a few hours was homeless. Like, I moved out of the apartment. I'm not back in Williamsburg yet. I got all my crap in my car. I was like, oh my goodness, that's the closest I've ever gotten to being homeless, thankfully. But I was like, I'm sort of homeless right now. I was like, I better park far so they don't think I need this sale, even though I do. I don't want them to see this car filled with junk. So I sold that fridge, made $4,000. I'm like, this is a great week. But it took the entire week to do that. And it was like a full-time effort, full court press. And
so were you getting a cut off of them, or are you just getting a commission off of the sale?
It depend on the situation.
I guess those are the same thing. Were you acquiring them first and then reselling them?
No, just selling inventory. Other people's inventory for a cut.
Okay.
So I met up, on my way back to Williamsburg. I stopped in Charlottesville, met up with the owner of that Smoothie King location. Met him at his other Smoothie King. And I said, hey, here's all the stuff. My cut, 20, 25%, whatever it was, might have been 15 actually, was that 4,000. I'm like, sweet, I'm walking away with $4,000 cash. And he and I settled up and went well. But I had so much fun with that, but it was a full-time thing. I said, when I start my job in September this fall, I can't be doing this stuff. There's no way. It's too time intensive. So I probably had that job for 2 weeks. I was like, all right, time to, after hours on weekends, let's try this real estate thing.
So what was the first thing you did? How did you, well, I guess let me back up. How did you decide on Williamsburg that was going to be the place that you're going to make a go at it? Is this because that's where family was?
Exactly. It's the market I knew, the market I've always known. It's the market I was living in. Because I'm a COVID grad, my job, which would have been in office up in Columbia, Maryland, which is where the regional office was located, became a work from home job. So they shipped me a computer, they shipped me a work phone and, some monitors and stuff. And I just set up shop in my brother's old bedroom, as unglamorous as it is. Like, there were still posters on the wall and everything that, a kid at the time, 12 years old, would have up in their bedroom. And he had moved into a different room.
Like The Rock?
Huh?
Like The Rock? I'm just kidding.
No, he's not like that. But it's just like random stuff.
Oh, like that. Okay. So we're going to, okay. All right.
I just mean he's not a fan of The Rock, like Zach Miller over here.
Who says I'm a fan of The Rock? This is a poster of him doesn't mean I'm a fan of him.
I just made an assumption.
Bad guy now.
You're jumping way too many conclusions. Like, you think you think you have a mat for that or something? Like, this is not Office Space. Like,
tell you what they were posters of is everything like Britain related. He loved the country of Britain.
I was expecting like Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera, but I guess I was wrong.
They're not even my time period, but
yeah, I knew I was speaking out of turn on that, but I couldn't think of anyone else.
Yeah. Britney Spears is actually the first one that came to my mind too, for some reason, even though, again, before my time period. But so anyways, I was in his office and, I found some desk on Facebook Marketplace and kind of made it my own. And, every day after work, I would either drive around kind of what I would call Class C minus neighborhoods. Just literally write down on a list on my phone, on my notes app. Any house had like tarp on the roof or siding falling off or, abandoned cars in the driveway or old boats, that you could tell don't work anymore. Whatever it had, I'd look for these indicators of distress and indicators of, financial probably distress. I'd write down the addresses. And then the next day after work in the evenings, I would put all those addresses into my system I was using at the time. I still use it. It's called PropStream. And it's a system anyone can use. I just subscribe to. But I'd put them in. I'd skip trace them. So I'd find the people's phone numbers. I'd find their mailing addresses. Sometimes they didn't live at those houses. They were vacant properties or non-owner occupied properties. And I just start cold calling. And, so every other evening. So, on the on days, I would drive around, get the addresses. On the off days, I would be at home after work. I would just be cold calling until about 6:30, 7:30 at night. So it wasn't super hard. It was 2.5 hour stints. It wasn't like I was working the phones all day or anything like that, but it was just consistent action. Sometimes I might only reach 10 to 20 people in that session, but it was just consistent action.
And what was the common response at this point when you would reach somebody?
Because they own the house at this point, right? It's not they're not listed saying they're selling, right?
No, they're not listed.
Okay.
I just say, hey, I'm trying to reach the owner of 123 Apple Street. I was driving around the area recently. Your property caught my eye. I'd always say your property because sometimes I'd write down like lots or things I thought were building lots. Learned that the hard way when I'd say, oh, I'm interested in your house. I'm like, well, there's no house on that property. I'm like, oh, I mean your lot. So I just started saying your property caught my eye. And especially if it was like a duplex or something, just your property is a good catch-all. And sometimes they'd say, more often than not, they'd say, I'm not interested, or how'd you get my number, or, F you, or whatever it might be. But you just have to laugh at those and move on. Every once in a while, maybe 1 in 100, 1 in 200 would say, yeah, I've actually considered selling, or, I want to sell in the next month or 2 or 6 months, whatever it is. And then, you got a lead to keep following up with. But of course, time kills all deals. So if they're ready to go now, you just got to be able to move now. So then what I would do with those properties is if I found someone that was in that case, they're a homeowner, like you said, Zach, they're off market, they're not listed with an agent. I'm the investor working direct with the seller, direct with the homeowner. At that point, it's an off market deal. The moment we sign an agreement, and I call them agreements. I learned that early on through a lot of YouTube videos I watch. I never like to call them contracts.
You are not a licensed agent or anything at this point?
No, sir. Still not.
That was my Okay.
Yeah. Because
where'd you get the capital to throw into some of these houses? Because you had a job and you were saving?
So from these houses. So what I was doing is my first full year, I don't know how many deals I did, but it was a good handful. It was enough to double my work income my first year. It was exactly almost down to the dollar, like double what I was making at work just from the real estate stuff. I never bought a single one of these houses. They were just income generators for me. I would wholesale them. So I would assign the contracts once I had them under contract to house flippers.
Okay. Can you go into a little deeper what that actually is like?
Sure.
So you acquire, you get someone else to buy it on the contract that you've gotten them interested in?
So I'd put a house under contract, and when one of you bought your house, the process. You sign a contract. How long until you've actually moved into that house? How many days would you say?
A lot.
At least about
30.
About 30.
Several weeks. Yeah, 30, 45 days.
So that's standard. Yep, 30 to 45 days. On a typical buyer's end, on a retail transaction, Zach or Tim, you're moving into a new house. Like, you guys are probably figuring out selling your last house and figuring out who's going to be your mover. And very importantly, figuring out who's going to be your mortgage lender and making sure that the mortgage loan goes through and all that. So I'm still doing similar due diligence and feasibility. But on my end, I'm going, who's going to bring me this, $85,000 in cash, or, sometimes that's the contract price. I'll mark it up. Who's going to bring me $105,000 in cash 30 days from now? So I start marketing the properties. Or technically, I don't market the properties because I'm not an agent. I would market the contract to purchase that property, the contractual right. And I'd walk people through the property, be like, hey, here's the property. Do you want the contract to purchase the property? Do you want to buy it? Yes, I want to buy it. Okay, well, my price is 105, 110, whatever the price is. In those situations, you can make mean, it just depends on the deal, but I've made as little as like $600 before in a deal like that. I've made as much as 35,000, something. I think 30,000 on one deal without taking title of the property, without funding it, because the person I've assigned my contract to, they're the one that's going to actually pony up the cash in 30 days. And
so you're selling access.
property.
You're selling access to this thing early, basically, where
Yeah.
that's the big selling point there. The value is, hey, this house wasn't for sale. I got it on sale. Now you can acquire this for $600 to $30,000 if you want the, whatever the correct mortgage word is here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. If you want to buy it.
That's pretty interesting. Okay.
How much? Yeah. So like with that, how much did you learn from your mentor, so to speak, in Harrisonburg, and how much did you learn from just taking reps down here?
He taught me a lot about the business and gave me a foundational understanding of the business, as much as someone who's in college can figure out, I guess. But the old saying, you learn by doing. For me, it was a lot of learning by doing, and just my at-bats I would have. So, he gave me a lot of knowledge. I learned a lot. I think thanks to him, I was able to speak in an educated way to potential sellers of these properties and sound like I knew what I was doing when I had no idea what I was doing. And I was absolutely terrified. It's a very humbling experience when you're sitting at a seller's kitchen table on a $400,000 house in a nice neighborhood in Williamsburg. And she goes, "How many of these have you done?" You know immediately what she's asking. You go, "Oh, how many of these, like, of this price point?" No. How many of these have you done? "Oh, like, how many in this neighborhood?"
Well, I'm thinking this. Like Williamsburg, it's known. It's an older, stereotypically, it's older community. And then you got Chase. You're probably 23, 24 at this point.
22, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be an interesting feeling.
Well, and thanks to a lot of these YouTube videos I was educating myself on, I'd learned to call the purchase contracts. I call them purchase agreements, because a contract makes you think, oh, my attorney needs to review this, and that puts friction in the deal and it slows down the process. I learned, and I forget what YouTube guru said it, call them agreements. So to this day, I call them purchase agreements.
Where'd you get the guts to do all this? Because it sounds like this isn't the norm for most things, most ways to acquire contracts in this stuff. And when you say it, you say it so like peacefully, where you're just like, yeah, I drove through this neighborhood. I took the address because there was a tarp on the roof, and then I got their number from this database that I have, and I call. And I called 200 of them. One of them would do it. And by the way, I'm no cash out of pocket. I'm just my cell phone bill away. That's gotta have balls to do that. It's pretty, that's pretty damn impressive, because you have no capital, right? And so people say, I can't do this. I don't have capital. And you're just like, screw it. Here's what you gotta do. Most people, the 99.999% repeating, will never do anything like this, because they don't have the guts to do it. And so this is wild. What is this, episode 206? This is some of the craziest strategies I've ever heard. This is wild. And you're not a real estate agent too. And that's the craziest thing in it.
Yeah.
Did you know all this stuff happened, Tim?
I knew, well, not to this level of detail, but again, Chase has just always been someone from the very first time that you met him, you knew that he was going to do something.
Right.
It was just a matter of figuring it out, what it was going to be. And so, yeah, to hear this stuff is super fascinating.
Well, Tim, you once said to me, and it was, I'm curious to know if you remember saying it or not, but you once said to me something, it was just in a conversation. So that's why I'm like, you may not even remember saying it, but it meant so much to me. You said, because, I was still always new and always just kind of hustling and, a young kid at the time. You told me we're at the launch pad, and it might have been around the time that the launch pad was winding down at that location, maybe. So towards the end, maybe, of where that was, and I was probably like a senior in high school at the time or something. You said you've done more entrepreneurially than many people do in their lives. And that was a huge compliment to me. I don't know if you remember saying that or not.
I do. Yeah. And like the thing, I don't know. I do what I do because I like seeing what you've done with yourself and taking the shots and taking the chances and the results. This is why I do what I do, man. Like it just makes everything worth it. And not everyone makes it as far as you have. And so it makes me appreciate you even more.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you guys equally.
Yeah. So how many deals have you done at this point now, since from the time that you started?
We're at the table with the old lady in Williamsburg. Here it is. How many of these have you done? Come on.
I still see her around town.
I still see her around. Do you have a number pad every time? You're like, I'm at 31, 32.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, how many have you done to date now, like as of the airing of this episode?
I don't know. And people might say, oh, he's, there's something up and he doesn't have a number. One thing that's been a big thing I'm still working on cleaning up in my business is I was doing this with a full-time job, evenings and weekends and stuff. A lot of the basic business, like bookkeeping and record keeping and everything, I wasn't keeping up with. So I'm still almost a year later, post corporate America, I'm still cleaning up the business from just hustling for 2.5 years without, a ton of time, a ton of help. But so to answer the question, I don't have an exact number, but it's more than 50. It's more than 50 transactions.
And you're doing stuff in Newport News and other areas now too. You're not just Williamsburg.
So I've done deals, using Williamsburg as a radius. I've done deals as far as Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, Norfolk, all kind of that south side area of the peninsula, northern neck side of Virginia, over the water over there, and then probably as far north as Fredericksburg. Further north. I've done one deal in Maryland.
And the style of stuff that you're doing is still the style from the story you just told us, where you're trying to find something and then you sell access, or have you?
I wholesale a lot less now than I used to, because I would look at these deals later and go, wow, like that house flipper made how much on the deal? Like, and I'd sort of reverse engineer the math like I would years ago when I knew way less. I was in high school just driving by these random houses. And I'm like, man, I don't know exactly what they paid for their renovation and, exactly all that, or how many concessions they gave to a buyer, closing cost assistance, whatever. But I can get an idea. They made this much. And I'd see the profit and I'd make, 10 to 20,000 on that deal. And they might make 80 to 100. I'm going, man, like I need to figure that side out. So I buy a lot more of them now than I ever used to. My first full year, I bought nothing. Just
do you actually flip them now too?
I do.
And
so I currently own a
team of contractors. How do you deal with that? Because that's the biggest potential risk, right? At this point, is how much that is going to cost.
Yeah, I've got a couple first string.
It doesn't sell for what you think it's going to.
Sorry,
what, Tim?
Or how long it's going to take these contractors or subs to finish the work. I mean, you're on a time scale. You want to get that thing flipped and sold before the first mortgage payment comes in and hits your.
Oh, that's quick.
Yeah,
as much as possible.
Yeah, I know. I always run my numbers that I'll probably hold a property for 6 months if I'm doing a renovation, before I either refinance it or before I sell it. And if it's sooner, great. I got one right now. I think it'll be a 4-month hold. And a lot of that, it's not actually super difficult to have the renovation done in about a month to 2 months. But if you're going to keep that property, you really want to hold it 3 months or 6 months with the cash that you purchased it with, or the hard money, which is what I use, because you're going to get better terms from the lender when you refinance it than you would if you owned it for a month and you're refinancing it. So I hold them for at least 3. I recently found a loan product that's decent at a 3-month seasoning. But a lot of them I hold for 6 months and then I refinance them. But at that point, they're already rentals. They're already renovated. They're already rentals. Or rent to own deal. I do those too. So, yeah.
When was the last time you cleaned your car?
That's actually a funny question. The guy that was always a detailer that hated the drive-through tunnel washes now has a monthly membership at a drive-through tunnel wash.
Is it touchless or is it?
It beats the hell out of that clear coat.
Because you used to be a detailer, if we didn't mention that before, like you used to detail cars.
Yep.
Interesting.
What?
Wow.
I know that you went to business school at JMU. What was your major?
I had a marketing major with
That's
a
right.
minor in entrepreneurship and a concentration in European business.
Wow. Why European?
Because that's what you got if you went and studied abroad for a semester, and study abroad sounded cool.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was because your brother's posters on the wall, Rick, really like
Oh yeah, right.
made a big impact.
Not really.
Okay.
But I like London as well, just as much as he does. But it was just an opportunity to travel throughout college. It was a fun experience.
Where do you see yourself taking this? So are you going to be going more towards these flippers that are making the big coin?
So yeah, so I renovate a lot more of them now than I ever used to. Here's kind of my model in the business now. Whereas when my first year, I had no money or no access to money. And I say access to money because now I borrow money from private lenders and private investors. And their money is secured by the deal. They're literally just like a regular Bank of America mortgage or whatever it is. Their investment is a loan rather than an investment. And I would say the difference between an investment and a loan is the loan secured and investment is not. So their investment is actually a loan. It's a secured investment against the property in first position or second position. Just depends on the amount and the reason for the capital and what's being done with that property. But so that's how I fund them now. And since I do have, and I'm always looking for more funding sources, more people that I can give, an additional income stream to, something different from a CD or a bond or, a market index fund. But now that I have access to capital, I'm buying a lot more of them. And so here's my model. If I can get a deal on creative terms, which would be if the seller will take their money over time and the seller wants to be the bank on that deal, I'll buy it on seller financing. And that'll pretty quickly become a rental or a rent to own type of property, depending on the condition of the property. If that's on a property that's usually free and clear, they own it outright. If it's a totally different situation, so that's if the seller has a ton of equity. If they've like close to no equity, I'll offer to take over that mortgage payment. Because what else happened back in 2020 when I was learning this business? The market was super hot. Interest rates are like 2 and 3% interest rates on mortgages. They're not that now. They're closer to 6 to 7 range percent. Huge bump. I'll try to take over those mortgages at 2 to 3%. So I'll buy the property subject to that mortgage. And again, that'll be a rental or a rent to own type of property. Lastly, if I cannot get creative terms on a transaction like the ones I just mentioned, have the seller be the bank or take over the note that the current owner already has and buy it that way, I'll buy it cash. And when I buy it cash, I'm using investor funds or hard money, which is called hard money because it's based on that hard asset, that house. And I'll borrow the purchase price and I'll borrow the renovation cost. And then I'll renovate that property and then refinance it within 3 to 6 months. Lastly, and I know I just talked a lot and there's probably a ton of questions. Lastly, if none of that works, like my sweet spot is buying houses for roughly 100 to 200 grand, selling them or refinancing them based off a value of 300 to 350. 250 to 350, I'd say. That's just kind of my sweet spot that I like. Every once in a while, I'll get a lead. Had one recently, actually over in the Yorktown area, and it was like a $400-something thousand home. And it was a massive house and just way too big of a project than I wanted to take on, and had the interest in taking on, especially for a higher end renovation, which is a much less forgivable neighborhood, much less forgiving buyer, If you've got a few quality issues or couple boo-boos on a class C type of neighborhood on a starter home, you'll be okay. But if you make any mistakes on that higher end, it's going to be a lot harder to sell. Those I'll still wholesale to investors that are more experienced and have more robust businesses than I do to take on something of that size.
Man, that's fascinating stuff. Who would have thunk?
Who would have thunk it?
Man, that's wild. Do you go back to JMU at all? Have they invited you back to share, or what you do is just too risky to take back to the student body?
That's a good question. I've not been invited back in that way. I was in a business fraternity in college, so usually during homecoming weekend they'll have a alumni weekend as well. And I've spoken to the business fraternity on the alumni panel a few times. But as far as like the actual educational administration of the school inviting me back, that's not happened yet, which is okay. I'm still doing plenty of learning myself before I feel like I'm ready to do.
I'm surprised, Chase, that you haven't picked up one of the apartment complexes around campus. Man, what a racket that is, man. I mean, it's just those things must pay for themselves quickly. I mean, like the way that they have the kids program, I got to sign my lease because they're going fast. And it's like telling my daughter, I'm like, Madison, it's like, you just entered this lease, and you're already looking to sign the next lease. It's just like crazy.
Falling for it. Yeah. Falling for it.
Yeah, that's I actually learned a lot from that, being a renter of those complexes. I've learned a ton. This is not a joke. I'm doing my first student rental now. And for now, I self-manage everything. And this one I might sub out to a third-party management company. I'm not decided yet. But I reached out to my buddy that I was a roommate. We were roommates. There's 4 of us, but he was like always the most organized. Like he would pay the rent, he would pay the utilities, and then Venmo request everyone their portions. Like he was just so organized. I texted him, I kid you all not, last week. I said, hey, do you happen to have our old lease and our old lease guarantor forms and stuff when we rented from Matchbox Realty, which is the big management company?
I think I have a T-shirt of theirs. Like, yeah.
Oh, really? And he texts back, I think it was 1 minute or 2 minutes later, with a Google Drive with all the forms. I was like, dude, you're a tank. And he had everything. I was like, oh, this is great. Now I got what I need to do my own student rental here in this town.
Command F, take out Matchbox, put in Canova Delight. Yeah, rock and roll. Let's go. I don't know what the company name is, but I thought Canova Delight sounded good. So,
I like that.
I don't know why I came up with that at all. I have no idea why.
So what I've done, Chase Buys Any House is my DBA name, my doing business as or fictitious name. I don't take title in Chase Buys Any House at all. It's a DBA for a totally different LLC name that sounds nothing like that. I probably have 3 or 4 LLCs, I think, right now. One's a holding company, so 3 active ones at the moment. And they're all got different names that if you looked them up, you'd have no idea who they are or that it's me. But each one has a little bit of a meaning to me. But as an outsider looking in, you wouldn't know that it's me. That's
random thought, since we're on the talks about colleges. I feel like recently every colleges and universities has had like their day of giving.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's just like obnoxious. It's like, okay, you guys have already, we know that 90% of people are in student debt. We know that schools have just like escalated those numbers to astronomical annual fees.
Mm-hmm.
And then this day of, they're like, oh, hey, alumni, please give us some more money. It's like, you've already gotten a lot out of everyone. Why are you asking for more? And it just boggles my mind. And then like you see like professors like promoting it. They're like, oh, do this. And I'm just like, this is obnoxious. Like we have all given so much money. And now you guys want more.
Yeah.
And you know that the student bodies of these schools are so in debt in so many situations.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me that this stuff still happens, yet those numbers are so high. Just general thoughts. Either of y'all's thoughts on when you see that kind of stuff? Like, do you guys do you give? Like, do you?
The thing that really boggles But the thing that boggles my mind is like when you see the headlines, and so when UVA just got a $30 million unanimous gift, and I'm like, how much money does this person have to just give a $30 million gift? And like, you must really, I don't know, or what pathway must have been paved that I'm like, I'm going to give my alma mater $30 million or something like that. I mean, this is wild.
I think it shows how conditioned we are as a society. Tim, you mentioned how your college student says, "Hey, I got to sign my lease immediately," and it's like, didn't we just sign a lease? Like, that's conditioning. We're conditioned similarly. Like, give back to our alma mater. They've given us so much, and they have. And I think we would all talk very highly of all of our alma maters where we go, or where we went. But it shows how conditioned we are as a society. I think. I mean, what a great business model. You're not a business at all. You're a nonprofit. You're a lot of them state funded. You're getting all these grants. You got alumni giving millions of dollars, and you got your customers paying as well.
Yeah, I mean and they start from the time that you apply. They just start pounding in India. And good on them. I mean, if they can get away with it,
sure. Yes,
but.
Look, and I have nothing but great things to talk about from a Morgantown perspective.
Sure.
And I love West Virginia. But like when I see these people post this stuff, and it's not just Morgantown, it's I've seen the JMU ones, I've seen the UVA, the ODU ones. I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But just my thought. Tim?
I lost my train of thought. You got me wrapped up on this. Giving back.
Well, often, Adele Martin says, often those major donations are over an agreed upon time frame, not all at once.
Oh, really?
It's still $30 million.
Yeah, I mean it's wild.
You'll know who the anonymous is when a new name goes on a door, on a building.
Yeah, or the hall. Yeah. No, good on JMU though. I mean they're on the right trajectory. I mean it's just it's stunning. What they've been able to do. And you were I guess on the way up. You kind of missed out on some of the stuff, Chase, but
I did. I never had the new business school. I had the old one.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
I remember.
And they're good at sports now.
Yeah.
Not that they haven't been good at sports, but
yeah, I was gonna say we're always good at sports. We're only just now getting recognized for it.
Well, I mean, you guys were kind of in the minor leagues. You guys were like the Norfolk Tides of colleges in Virginia.
Yeah, now I think they were called the best kept secret in the Shenandoah Valley, and now they're not really a best kept secret anymore, which is great. There's attributes to both sides of that, but unfortunately, I was just having this conversation last night. A little bit of a victim of our own success, though. We're losing coaches left and right now.
You guys have lost the athletic director, the president, basketball coach, football coach. We can't blame them either.
10x,
you got to strike
10x. I mean, the football coach is getting paid 10x money. I'm sorry, like it's going to be really hard to stay somewhere,
right,
for 10x less money. And if JMU sucks next year, he misses that opportunity. So it's kind of a supply and demand thing too, where it's like, hey, the iron is hot. I think is the term. Like you got to jump on board, and if not, he might not ever get that opportunity again.
Yeah, you really can't blame people, I don't think, for those decisions.
Who would say 10x less to something like that? You're doing the exact same job.
Right.
Most people would, the overwhelming majority of people would take a 10x, promotion.
Yeah.
Hard not to, right? What, Chase, have you had anyone, have you hit the point yet where people are now asking you to mentor them? I'm sure if it hasn't happened, it's got to be soon.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. And I do try to give back. So my brother's in high school right now. It's his senior year. He just committed to a college, which I'm really excited about. And he'll be playing football there. Mm-hmm. And so he's, that's always kind of how it goes. He's not as interested in the real estate stuff, but he's got friends that are friends from his football team and stuff. And, I made sure I kind of just send invitations to them. I hosted an event recently with one of the local real estate groups at one of the renovated properties. And I invite a couple of Clark's friends to come out. and just learn more about what I do and see the property, and just kind of a no obligation. Hey, if you want to come, you think this is fun, great. If you don't, no problem at all. Just figured I'd invite you. I like to try to. This will be a surprise to you guys, but I like to try to meet new people. Such a surprise, right? So like, there's even guys at the car wash I go to that. I mean, they think my car's cool, even though it's like 10 years old. And they're like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I'm in real estate." So I invited them, and
it's interesting. Last week's guest, we had Greg Garrett, and so he shared what he started when he was 19, and we were joking around trying to do on the air math that I don't think that we ever figured out. But so he started when he was 19, and he's got 150 or so people that the part of his real estate empire, so to speak. So we'll see where Chase takes it.
You talk about being in the shadow of a giant. I'm a week after Greg Garrett. Tough act to follow.
But the thing is, so we did a little mini series, so to speak. We started with someone with Vroombrick. They're disrupting the whole buying, selling process. Think TurboTax for buying, selling, just to try to disrupt that. And then with Greg, Greg has seen a lot of success, and he's giving back. And now to round it out with you, you're the next wave that's going to take the region by storm.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I just try to have fun with it. And I try to, the one thing I like to say is every job, every business, we all, us three here, we can all say in this room, we all do what we love and we enjoy what we do. But we can also agree that there are tasks around doing what we love that we don't like doing. But the way it all boils out is as business owners and as entrepreneurs and just overall just people doing what we enjoy, no matter if we like that task or not within doing the business we enjoy, that's still a task that moves the needle. And I think
what's the worst task on a reno is what?
Worst task?
I'm guessing wax ring from a toilet, but I don't know.
That's a good one. Probably correct. I don't pull toilets, so I try to keep my hands clean.
But you got to learn that stuff.
You're too good for that, huh? You're too good. You got to
learn that stuff so that people can't rake you over the coals when they're quoting you a price for something.
Yeah, that's true. Worst tasks are probably it's the unforeseen stuff is never good. It's the thankfully, I hate to say this because now it's going to happen, but knock on wood, I've never had break-ins at renos or anything stolen, thankfully. But I think the worst stuff is just the boring stuff. Beyond that, you never want to find something that's going to cost you a lot more money that's unforeseen. That's never good. But it's the boring stuff. It's the setting up the utilities. It's the making sure the utilities are off before the next person moves in. And, I think it's the boring, simple stuff like that. At least for me, those are the worst things.
Yeah. Well, Chase, I'm super proud of you, man. It's been a real joy watching all this take place. That's super cool.
Thank you.
You just have to make sure you continue to pay it forward so that the next person can pay it forward, and that's what makes the world spin around, and that's what makes entrepreneurship really, really great.
Yeah, and I'll say on that topic, if you guys know anyone that might want to connect with me, or maybe I should connect with, that there can be a little bit of that equal flow of information either way. I'm happy to help. I'm always looking to learn as well, but I'm happy to help if anyone has questions from this or anything else.
All right. Well,
it's
been wonderful. Thank you for your time, Chase. Continued success. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 10 years. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I was just going to point out, Adele Martin had a question in the chat here.
Yeah, she wants to know if you'll talk to the Slover.
Adele, please reach out to me. Happy to do that. I don't know what it entails, but happy to do it. So,
all right.
Very cool. Look at that. It's great stuff. It just keeps on turning. I love it.
And guys, I'm so honored to be on this show and to continue this, I guess now at least a 10-year relationship at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, yeah, I don't know. Even before when we went live, to hear that those launchpad relationships, and we talk about it all the time about the Hatch relationships, that after all this time, that things are still happening from things that were formed so long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super, super cool.
Yeah. And if I've gotten a little bit less immersed with the local entrepreneurial ecosystem, I'll say the same thing I probably said 10 years ago or so. I'd love to be kept updated about the different events going on in the area and stuff, because I'll certainly be there if I can.
Awesome.
All right, Chase. See you in 10 years.
No way.
Now we'll go to Morgantown.